Hello everyone, you welcome to this edition of The Inside. I am Bable Jonathan. After the Mother Franciscan International College Kumba massacre of 24th October 2020 comes another dark, another bloody day in Anglophone Cameroon. A pupil is gunned down by an element of the National Armed Forces on grounds that the mother of the child who was driving the car in which she was refused to stop when she was asked to do so. The gendarme officer who fired the bullet that killed the school child is later subjected to jungle justice. He is killed by an angry mob. Pupils, students killed, other civilians, mothers, fathers, young people killed, elements of the National Armed Forces killed, fighters of non-state armed groups in the northwest and southwest regions killed, hundreds of thousands of children, mothers, fathers, young people displaced, some living in precarious living conditions in parts of the Republic of Cameroon, and others also living in very difficult conditions in neighboring Nigeria. This is the picture of a close to 5-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. And in the midst of this situation, a series of questions emerge. What were you taught in your tender ages? What have you grown to know? What did you do yesterday? What have you done? What are you doing today? How are you doing what you are doing? For what purpose? What impact are you making in the society? And what will you leave behind? From these questions, we will be analyzing some salient issues about life. We will be talking about the land we leave behind. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest today, Barrister Aneneba Innocent Akufor, is a Cameroon-born attorney and counsel at law in New York, United States of America, human rights defender and major proponent of decolonization. He is the author of the book, The Land We Leave Behind. Barrister, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Babila. Always a pleasure being on your program and on this nice and great channel called Équinoxe TV. The pleasure is mine, as always.
What's your take on this recent tragic incident in Anglophone Cameroon, in Moliko, Boya, southwest region? A pupil gunned down by an element of the National Armed Forces on grounds that the mother who was driving the car in which the child was didn't stop when she was asked to do so. And the soldier, the gendarme officer, is later on subjected to jungle justice, is killed by an angry mob. What's your take on this?
Well, Mr. Babila, I might start by offering my sincere condolences to the family of that little girl, Carol Louise Ndiaye. There are many of them like that, but because this captures this particular moment, I think it is very befitting for us to give her that respect. That's a soul that we've lost. That's somebody's child. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's nephew. And that might have been somebody's little aunt growing up. And this little soul has been taken away by mob justice, because that's what I call it. Because, but I always come back again to let Cameroonians know, to know Africans know. Dr. King once said that the moral arc of justice is long, but the moral act of justice is bent, but it bends towards justice. And we cannot maximize the minimum by minimizing the maximum. We can always use the type of justice that we have back in Cameroon, and we think that we'll go scotch-free. But in the end, justice will prevail. Justice will prevail because long revered is the maxim that in the strict scrutiny of the law rests our own security and safety. But that's something that's been lacking in Cameroon, that's what's been lacking in Africa and in most of our developing societies, which is something that we feel so much passion about it. We feel so much dejected about it, because for a soldier, someone who has been trained to keep the peace, to turn that weapon again, to kill another citizen, an armless young woman, even no matter what had transpired between him and that lady, the mother of that little child, was gunned down, there was absolutely no reason for this gentleman to have killed that innocent girl. Now we've lost two people, that girl and the soldier himself. But these are people that have been built by a system of mob justice. If you craft laws of oppression, if you craft laws that are backward looking, not forward looking for a society, this is the type of justice you have. Because if someone who is well cultured in the laws of tomorrow, not the laws of yesterday, they would not have done what this police officer or the gendarmerie officer has done. And this is the system that has been built in Cameroon, because Southern Cameroonians have gone through this type of justice for decades. It is not just baby Caroline Louis Ndiaye. You've got baby Martha that died. You had the massacre in Garbu. You had the one in Kumba, where lots of school children, young children were killed. And again, as I said, I'm not going to distract from this particular moment that captures this little girl by mentioning the other massacres. But it is befitting for us to tell these people that what they are doing is absolutely wrong. And I know they would come out and tell you that they would carry on an investigation. They would find out who is the perpetrator. Of course, we know. But the corrupt is porous, and it's something that has to be eradicated. And I think it is time for Cameroonians to stand up to the system and say enough is enough. We cannot be forward marching into a 21st century, and you have autocrats, people who are backward looking back into the 60s to be ruling that country. That's not the laws that would craft and move people forward. As long as those people are there, as long as social injustice, the structures of society are permeated by anomie, the way Emile Durkheim said it, you will always have this type of justice in the country, and we will never go forward from this. That gendarme officer has to be condemned. Luckily, again, when I use luckily, it's not in a pejorative way. I think if you use the law illegally, at some point, they should also use violence against you in the way they did to that gentleman, carrying the guns, bought by the taxpayers, sponsored by the state, not to protect, but to kill people, because that's what they've been trained to do. That's not the justice that Cameroon needs. Those type of people should not even be in the military or in the gendarmerie or in the police force. Those type of people belong back into their neighborhoods where they can live their life or do something else, but not in this type of place. But again, it just before the training that they've been given, because they've been trained to kill, especially when they come across an English-speaking Cameroonian, a Southern Cameroonian. They treat these people as beasts of burden. If it's a burden, the Bible tells you, if it's too heavy for you to lift, let it go. If the Southern Cameroons has become a burden to Cameroon, let the Southern Cameroons go. You might learn from them rather than clinging to this outworn shibboleth of injustice that has permeated the society. And if you permit me, Mr. Babile, when the Prime Minister went up to Bamenda, I think that was a week ago or about a fortnight, preaching peace and all that stuff. Now, this little child has died. I've not heard Mr. Paul Atanji speak. I've not heard the Prime Minister. Maybe they've spoken, but I've not heard it come out and condemn this. They're all tight-lipped. All those people who were speaking to the top of their voices in Bamenda, preaching all the nonsense that they call peace, they have not issued a word or a comment condemning these officers, because they themselves, they've been, they use them.
Spoken in a statement in which he condemns the press for amplifying what happens there in Boya. But before coming to that, what do you think about the argument that the soldier or the gendarme officer was only doing his job? The gendarme officer did not want to kill the little girl. He only suspected that that vehicle, since it didn't stop, could be dangerous for the population. What do you think about this argument?
I think there is something called due process. There is something called the rule of law. You are not the abiter of the law when you hold a gun. That's not your job. Your job is, there were other ways you could call backup. You could call, I mean, they have phones, they have a way of communicating, and they always walk in groups. They could have communicated amongst themselves and said, okay, if this vehicle is a dangerous instrument, or the tag is expired, or there is something, you think that there is something callous about this vehicle, there was a proper channel for you to have done that rather than using the gun to kill somebody. Because there was an unarmed civilian in that car, which was the mother, and the children themselves, they were unarmed. So why would you push your gun to the point where you can pull the trigger and shoot somebody? That's not how you resolve those type of issues. Again, as I said, there is due process. What do you do? If you think that there is some dangerous thing going in this particular vehicle, what do? You get a warrant, or you call backup for them to address that situation. You don't exercise mob justice on people, because that's not what you were trained to do, if they were even given the actual training as law enforcement officers are supposed to do.
Now, after the child was killed, the next thing was that the gendarme officer was subjected to jungle justice. He was killed by an angry mob. What can we read within the lines as far as the relationship between the military or the national armed forces and the population is concerned, the relationship between the people and the judicial system is concerned, and the evolution of the close to 5-year-long armed conflict?
Well, again, as I told you from the beginning, Emile Durkheim actually looked at the pathology of the French society when they were going through a social upheaval, and came up with the concept of anomie, where, you know, the social construct, the social fabric of the society becomes disconnected, disjointed, and no one can actually coordinate with the other. And at that particular point, people were committing suicide because of the, you know, the social deconstruction of society. And this is exactly what's happening in Cameroon. The justice system is so corrupt. Really, sometimes you really start to say it. You know, the magistrate is not a straightforward-looking person. He's not impartial. The prosecutor, the state prosecutor, he's not an impartial person. And all these people, so from the top to the bottom, if the system of legal representation, of jurisprudence itself is corrupt, then the average person himself or herself will be corrupt who tries to enforce the law. So if the gendarme or if the military, you know, these people that, you know, their job is to fend off enemies from attacking the nation, if they point their guns to be shooting average citizens inside the country, then that's something that, you know, they should be taken to, you know, beyond Cameroon to another system of justice. That mob justice was meted on this particular gendarmerie officer. It just, you know, it just tells you what anger can do when people perceive, when people, you know, decide to take the laws into their hands, because that's what he did by shooting at that little girl and fracturing the skull with the bullets of the gun, bought by the taxpayers. So when they jumped on him and did what they did to him, they had some self-satisfaction in themselves in doing what they did, because that is what was supposed to happen to him following what he did to that little girl. So it's not that we call for jungle justice. If the system of justice itself has failed people, at some point you want to take it on yourself to do it, because the persons that you've entrusted power onto them, you know, they're not doing what they are supposed to do. And that's, you look at the 5-year war that's going on in the between the Republic of Cameroon and the Southern Cameroon. You think that it's going to be abated very soon? It would not. The people are getting much more sophisticated every day. The people are getting much more staunch and stronger every day. And there is no way to tell them to drop their guns and get out of the bushes and come out, as they say it there. Because the fun fact is, or the most poignant point here is that the Prime Minister, when he goes to Bamenda or to Boya and tells those children, come out of the bushes, he fails to understand that all Southern Cameroonians are in the bushes. He does not know that. He does not know. because of the system of injustice that they've crafted towards this community, everybody is in the bush. You don't literally have to carry a gun and go and sit in the bush and, you know, and waylay a military truck or a gendarmerie officer. No, all Southern Cameroonians, including Mr. Atanga Njipol, including the Prime Minister, they are all in the bushes. They might just be sitting there in the upper echelons of power thinking that they've gotten it. No, because they cannot go back to where they belong. They cannot go back to their home, you know, to their homes. You know, just as the lady in Bamenda had once said it, Atanganji should not cross Mattazin to come back to this to Bamenda, because he is not part of that society anymore. You know, taking into consideration what they have done. So all Southern Cameroonians are in the bushes, and including those that the Prime Minister said in Bamenda again, because I listened to him. He said these people back in the diaspora, they're fomenting trouble. They don't pay taxes in Cameroon. They don't own houses in Cameroon. They don't do stuff in Cameroon. For me, that was hogwash. That was childishness, because that's not what a Prime Minister coming to preach peace should be saying. When we travel back home, when we go to our villages, we bring free money back to Cameroon. We bring lots of stuff to Cameroon that the government does not. It's tax-free. The remunerations, monies that the people send back from the diaspora back home to buy, you know, to prop structures back there. That's not what the Prime Minister should be saying to the people, that these people, you should not listen to them. No, they should listen to us, because we are the voices of sameness, not the voices of injustice that is permeated in Cameroon and led by the government. Because him, the Prime Minister, he has absolutely no powers, you know, as a Prime Minister that we know in other societies or other functional democracies. He knows it, and I just don't understand it. You know, but for the largesse and the greed that the autocrats are manifesting in that country, they just fold a blind eye and say, okay, that is, you know, society is good, everything is okay. No, but again, that's not how you do it, because John F. Kennedy said it. If you don't end the war is going to end the world. And that's what's happening between Cameroon and Southern Cameroon.
Okay, Barrister, I just want us to agree on some few things, on some few words, so that we can proceed on a level ground. As of now, we have the northwest and the southwest regions, which are two regions of the Republic of Cameroon, and there's a conflict between the people of those two regions and the government of the Republic of Cameroon. We had Southern Cameroons in the days of the British. I just want us to agree on these so that we can proceed on a level ground. Now, Barrister, when you look at this other incident coming at this point in time, after the Prime Minister went to those two regions to preach peace, and this incident is happening after almost an entire village was burnt down in the Bui division, several houses burnt down, and accusing fingers pointing to national elements of the National Armed Forces. What do you think about the consequences on the situation on the ground, the consequences on the efforts that have been made so far by government and other stakeholders to restore peace and normalcy in those two regions?
Well, if you've lost authority, if you've lost every popular iota of efficiency in governing a people, and when the people decide to take the laws into their hands, then you've lost it. I think Cameroon has actually lost legitimacy over the Southern Cameroons. If they don't know that, they should have known that when this war started. They thought it was something that was going to be done within 3 weeks. It's going on for 5 years. So when villages are being razed down, whether it's by the people you call, you know, I don't call them separatists. They are assertionists. They are setting it right, you know, because everyone is born free, an unalienable right to be free and to be happy, and they should be free and they should be happy. These are people, you've trained them in the type of schools that you train them. They come out, they don't have any jobs. You know, I heard the president of Cameroon said it one time that, you know, he's given them all the tools to go and lift themselves up. And this is the very fallacy of the prophecy that Dr. Martin Luther King called, you know, the the bootstrap theory. You tell people to lift themselves by their bootstraps, and it is so curse-worthy to tell somebody who does not even have a boot to use a strap of that boot to lift him or herself. So if the government has failed, and which this government has failed, it's a failed state, unfortunately. You know, it's a failed state in Cameroon. If they have failed, then they cannot extend that failedness into the southern Cameroons, and that's why the people are taking, you know, taking responsibilities into their hands. That we don't want these laws. They don't want these laws. They want something different. When you come to them and tell them that you have a special status that you've given to them, I had asked, who is giving whom a special status? Why would two people with two equal power, authority? It's just like you and your wife at home. You know, you have equal status. You cannot impose on one. The one cannot impose on the other. You have to negotiate. That's the failure that Cameroon thinks they've gotten. And they live in the past. They thought in the past they could, you know, ravage some of this stuff and go unscathed or unheeded. Nobody would know. But today is different. You have a different generation. And until they match what's going on with the current situation of the people, they would still be living in the past, and this war will prolong. You just need a clean sweep. All those administrators, all those people who think in the past, who think with the glow of France Afrique, extending that reach to the southern Cameroons, they will eventually fail, because those children or this young generation, they will not take it, because they saw with their parents what their parents, they tried to work this thing out. It did not work. They were dejected. I saw when Foncha came back from Yaoundé, he tried to seek audience to see the president of the republic. The guy turned him down. But this is the guy who brought you guys into that union. When he wants to talk to the president, he turned him down because they know exactly what the southern Cameroon wants, but they are unable to deliver. And if you cannot deliver the goods to the people, then you cannot seek justice through the, your failed promises. You know, I asked all the time, if you have two different systems, two different constructs, your English, I mean, the legal system that operates, the jurisprudence that operates in these two regions, and what operates in the south, in the Republic of Cameroon. I had asked you this question: if you produce your goods from Bamenda, you take them down to Douala, you produce under a common law system, you take them down to Douala, what legal, or you cross to Bafoussam, what legal system do you apply? This thing was tenuous from the origin. This thing was meant to fail. As I said, it was a power cake that we are sitting on, and it has been unraveling, and at some point it will bring down the entire system. So the best thing at this moment is to let these people go, renegotiate the terms of the existence, and you talk to the right people. Don't talk to the prime minister. Don't talk to Mr. Atangaji, or don't talk to most of those guys when they talk, because they don't represent the people. Even those boys, the children carrying the guns, they have asserted their right to be free, and they would be free. So no matter what you do to them, no matter what you do, they would not just lay those arms down. Not that we want fight. We want this fight to continue. We want peace, but it has to be a peace that it is negotiated on a peaceful term by the people, the belligerents, not friends. You don't make peace with your friend. You make peace with your enemy, if you can call them your enemy. But those are the people, they have their point. That's what they're looking for. They want freedom. They want to live in happiness. But if the legal system has been constructed in such a way that they are always oppressed, you write a law in Cameroon, in French Cameroon, bring it to the southern Cameroons, where somebody cannot just lift a voice to say something. You pick him up, put him in a military tribunal. You try him without a jury. You know, a biased judge is sitting there. You know, all he talks to you is in French. Somebody who speaks English, somebody who's done all his schooling in English, is taken to a military tribunal. He's being tried in French, in the French language, with a French law. Now, what type of, so why do you think those children will come out to come and talk to you? They would not. They would not drop those ammunitions, because when they started, they had machetes. That's what they had. But look at how sophisticated they are today. You think they will come back? They've tested power too, just as you did the power by yourself. Just the way your military had been oppressing them in the past. They've tested this power too, and they can run with it. So it will be difficult for you to come and talk to them that they should drop their weapons and come back. The few that you go and cajole behind to come and smoke screen and say, okay, these people have dropped their arms. That is just a farce. That's just a show. Because in the end, they regret what they did. Again, we don't want war. War is not the solution. The solution is for us to sit down, but sit with the right people, Mr. God.
All right, Barrister, talking about negotiation, the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph Jangute, just like the National Chairman of the Social Democratic Front, John Frundi, say that things cannot move if people are static on the same position at the extreme. And no, the Prime Minister, Wale Mbamenda, said that government has moved a great deal, touched the center, but on the other side, nothing has moved. We want independence, we want cessation, and that has been it on the other side. And the Prime Minister simply thinks that people should be able to move. John Frundi says people should be able to move, accept one thing and continue asking for the other. That's the only way they think that a possible negotiation that can take us out of the troubled waters can take place.
Yes, and I listened to those both statesmen. I listened to John Frundi, Power Frundi, and I hold him in high esteem. And I equally hold the Prime Minister in high esteem. He was my teacher, and I will never take that away from him. But when it comes to governance and all that stuff, it is totally different. You can say they have moved. What have they moved? If you create a special status, and you create all those regional councils, and you devolve powers to the chiefs that are just part of the CPDM and all that stuff. Again, people are just too smart these days. These days that the CPDM could cajole Cameroonians and go with it. They can deal with that in the French-speaking part of Cameroon and go free, but not with the Southern Cameroons again, because we've taken this for so long. Southern Cameroonians, they've taken this for so long, and they do not believe what these people are saying. They are all liars. Unfortunately, I have to use that word. That is not true. When the Prime Minister says they have moved, the other people are static on one point. Well, you have to draw your ground. That's where you start. Bring it. Let's talk. Let's sit and talk. But if they draw their ground and they stand at a particular position, why is it that when you go to negotiate all that stuff, you are bringing the same people within a single political party, and maybe little vestiges of the SDF, which for me, it's all part of the same system already. Why use the same people and you expect a different result? No, you have to talk to the right people, even if it means getting out of Cameroon to do it, because most of the people nobody outside here. We love coming home. We love the country. We love coming to our villages to talk to our people and enjoy life. That's where we were born. And that's where our children, we like them to see where we were born, so they can be able to visit when we are no longer here, because no one lives forever. But you want your children to know we did not come to the United States like other black people came. We came differently, not the United States or all over the world. We came differently. We have children that we want them to come back to that country and help out. But if you've drawn this line that, we have moved a little bit closer to the center, you want us to come closer. When I mean us, I mean those people fighting on the ground in Cameroon there. So what do you expect of them? If they know that everything you're doing, it's farce, it's not true, they would not accept it. Because again, just look at the social, I keep calling it a social status. It is really not special. It is social, because it's just like you sit in a beer parlor and you drink with your friends and you say, okay, no, this is a special person. No, that is not. That is what they've done. So if me, John Frundi, is saying that they have moved to a certain point, then the Prime Minister is saying that they've moved to a certain point. Move with the right people. If he had done all this stuff with the people who matter, it would be okay. There was a Swiss-sponsored program. I don't know the details about it. I don't know if Cameroon participates in that particular program. That was something that was mediative, done out of Cameroon. What has become of that? No, they don't want that. They bring the same stooges of the system to corrupt the minds of the people and say, oh no, the government has spoken, government is good, the president of the republic is, looking after its children, the president doesn't want the children to be killed. But that's exactly what the president wants. He wants to eliminate you people into such a point where he has no more people to kill. And that's what they did with them, baby Caroline Ndiaye. And this is a system that they've built all through. Why do you think people would believe them? People would never believe them. So they stick to their point. They stand their ground. You stand your ground until they see that if it is meaningful justice, if it is something meaningful that they are saying on the other side, I tell you, I bet you, the people will come. When the late Cardinal Christian to me, may his soul rest in peace, when he went out on a commission and came out and said, this thing, 65% of the people he tallied, they want independence, or they want a certain level of autonomy in the southern Cameroons. No, they brushed that aside. But you have sycophants in that system. You have people who come on other channels in Cameroon, on Cameroon TV, and English-speaking Cameroonians, and tell you about, there was a place.
Please, we can always make a point without using insults. Please, we are talking here and you're talking there about state authorities in Cameroon, and it's not acceptable here on Equinoxe for insult to be used against those authorities. Now, you said earlier that if it has to take going out of Cameroon to discuss with those who are on the other side on asking for cessation and independence, that should be done by the authorities. And some of the authorities have gone out there to the United States to talk with some of the leaders. Recently, Minister Felix Mbayu said in Bamenda that he was out of the country to talk with the leaders. And one of them, he didn't mention his name, came to him and asked for a huge sum of money, about 200 million francs CFA or so. This to say that the people who are masterminding things from the background are working or fighting for their personal interests, for their own greedy interests, and not for the interests of the people. What will you say about this?
It depends who you're talking to out here. And if you come to negotiate and you put money, I don't know the terms of whatever Mr. Bayu Felix came out here and whom he talked to. We don't know about that. And again, excuse my language if it's a little bit harsh. Sometimes you have to talk with a little bit of passion when some of these things happen. Again, it's not directed at somebody specifically, it's generalized statements. And again, about coming out here and talking to people, and somebody told them that they need 200 million or 200 million francs CFA for them to negotiate. Well, we don't know how that person was contacted, and to the best of my knowledge, people that I know who passionately want peace in that enclave called Cameroon and the southern Cameroon, they don't care a dime. They don't care. They would not take a dime from anyone to do anything, because they are self-sufficient by themselves. All they want is for peace to return. And that's why I was a little bit cross when the Prime Minister was accusing people in the diaspora that they don't pay taxes in Cameroon. Lots of the people out here, they have investment. They want to come back. They really want to come and help the people. But they need that space. They need that space. You cannot go to your village and you're moving around and all you find gendarmeries and military people parading the streets. Even at peacetime, when this war had not happened, that's what was occurring in Cameroon. So this is something people have grown used to. And they don't want it anymore. So when they come out to talk to the people, and some are taking money, asking for money in order to negotiate, that is not true. That is not, not that it's not true. It is not right. Whoever did that, I would outrightly condemn that, because, if you are taking money over the blood of people spilling back in our part of the world, then that is something to be condemned. But again, it depends how you approach people.
Take some few minutes to go to the newsstands and see what the newspapers reported this week. The press review by Immaculate Fogue. We'll be right back in a short while.
Horror in Boya. Gendarme shoots to death 5-year-old girl on her way to school. Officer at the origin of the macabre, stoned to death. Irate crowd defies gunshots by marching with the corpse of the slain people. The Post says, as PM rounds off peace mission, military rounds off arson campaign in Kikai Kambui Division, Northwest Region. The Post Weekender reports, Moja and gendarmes torture and imprison 8 months pregnant woman accused of being General No Piti's ex-girlfriend. The Rising exclaims, negotiations for return of sustainable peace in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Actors accused of beating about the bush. The Median quotes Dr. Ashu Nyenti, who warns Anglophones by saying special status no make error. The Herald Tribune describes Prime Minister Chief Joseph John Gute's visit in the Northwest region as a renewed hope for peace. Another edition of the Guardian Post states, Anglophone crisis, Thibault Nart's predictions, inconsistencies sparks heated debates. The Sun, CDC workers call off strike, Prime Minister summons trade unions for dialogue. The Scoop, Southwest chiefs urge government to abolish auxiliary of administration appellation, demanding the reintroduction of customary courts. The Horizon, Nabil Bombonjoya is new Sultan of Bamun.
Immaculate Fogwe, thank you for the press review. Barrister Aneneba Innocent Akufor is still with us, joining us from Brazil. Barrister, you are the author of the book, The Land We Leave Behind. And as I indicated earlier, in the midst of this terrible situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, there are a series of questions emerging and directing or reflecting the happenings or some of the things that are being done by one person or the other in those two regions. And we have these questions. What were you taught in your tender ages? What have you grown to know? What did you do yesterday? What have you done? What are you doing today? And why are you doing what you're doing? And how are you doing that? For what purpose? What impact are you making or your actions are making in society? What are you going to leave behind? And Barrister, permit me to read a section of the prologue of your book so we can start from there. It says, from the snow caps of the North and South Poles to the tropical rainforests of Africa and the wilderness of the Amazon, from the rich oil fields and streaking sands of the deserts around the world, to the beautiful beaches and continental lakes, from the coral reefs adoring the seabeds to the air that sustains our lives, from the vast expanse of the Milky Way to the boiling springs of Yellowstone National Park in the US, from the coffee farms of Santa Coffee Estate to the sugarcane fields of Pernambuco, Pariaba, and Bahai, the reefs of nature are enough. The gifts or these gifts of nature are enough to create a balance and cater for everyone's yearnings without need for any human species to live in destitution. Barrister, can you expatiate a little more on this?
Thank you so much, Mr. Babila, for reading that little caption on the book, The Land We Leave Behind. I took time to write that book, and it was way before the problems in the southern Cameroons came up. And I actually wrote that book because, you know, growing up as a little boy in Santa, you mentioned the Santa Coffee Estate. I knew my sister, my elder sister, used to work there. And as a child, we would go there, you know, when we have, you know, on vacation, we would go there, and there was water flowing in that place. There was electricity. You had coffee made in Santa that was existing. These are things that we always reflect on. We look at that nostalgia. It's gone. It's gone not because We, the people, were lazy. It's gone, not because the land is no longer there. It's gone because you had people that you entrusted with power and authority, and they let you people down. And that's exactly what has happened to that particular coffee estate. So if you look at the beauty of the world, as I mentioned, the snow caps, the streaking suns, and here in Bahia, where I am right now in Brazil, you know, this is, you look at Pernambuco, you look at all those Recife, those are beautiful places. These are places that God's children should live in harmony and not in war, because the resources of the earth, what God has adorned this beautiful world in which we live, it's something that can feed all of mankind, and we would not go destitute. But if you have people who live by greed and avarice, they want excesses because, you know, they think they have to own it all, then that is the problem we have. We want harmony with the environment. We want harmony with neighbors. We want harmony with our souls itself. If you go from that point, you know, all the guns of war will be silenced. All the ammunition will be buried, and all we would sow is peace with us. So that when you leave this world, the land that you leave behind will be a land that's peddled with glory and flourishing with, you know, with an avarice for pureness and not hate that's been sowed in Cameroon, because the legacy that the system has left in that particular Cameroon that we grew up knowing, it's a legacy of hate and mistrust. That's not something that you leave for your people. And unfortunately, African leaders, they are good at that. They don't care about what they leave. They care about what they leave their immediate family circle or friends. And that's what they do. So if you look at the land we leave behind and how I grew up as a young person, you know, when I was penning that particular book, I thought about there is a story of penned by Washington Ivan about Rip Van Winkle. He was the guy, you know, during the social revolution here in the United States. He went up the mountain to take a nap, and he slept for 20 years. But by the time he got up to that hill, when he looked, there was a signpost. It was King George III of England. When he woke up from his nap, after 20 years, there was a different name on that signpost. It was George Washington, the first president of the United States. So he slept through the revolution. It was a social upheaval then. We all know American history. Most people do. And what I'm looking at that and writing the line we leave behind is, do not be caught in this social morass that is in Cameroon or any other African country. Raise yourself up, raise your voice, and tell the system that the system is no longer working. If the prime minister, I mean, all those government officers, I should not be calling just the prime minister. When the president comes out, please come out and let them know, vent your anger and frustration, even if it means not going to work, boycotting everything. You do like Gandhi did. Social, you know, do it in a peaceful manner. All the guns and ammunition will not really help us solve the situations back in Cameroon. The government thinks they can do it, but that's not how we solve this problem. We solve this problem by looking your brother or your relative in the eye and say, okay, let's talk about this issue. Put it down straight. No precondition. Don't say the form of the state is not something we can discuss. Of course, you have to, because there were two states that came in. We have to discuss it. So if you're looking at the land that you're living, it has to be a land that's justified. There's justice and peace that will prevail. If you look at the state of Athens, Aristotle, that was a statesman. At some point, he was condemned by the state. But because of his popularity, what he had done, he could have left Athens. He could have left Greece. But what he decided to, and nobody would have objected him from leaving. But what Aristotle did was he drank the hemlock and died. So he killed himself because of the state, because of the system that he had crafted. And he became a victim of it. Not really a victim in that sense, because he was judged by that system and found guilty. And rather than, you know, play the fact that he's an aristocrat or he's a bureaucrat, a bourgeoisie, he decided he drank the hemlock, and that's how he died. So if most of our government officers, if you're elected into positions of power, if you cannot actually give the people what is due. The good thing is you can resign, you can leave government. Government is not the solution. Government is the problem. The way it is in Africa and in Cameroon, government is the problem, not the solution. You can leave. We can develop, people can develop the private sector if you can leave the government away, because these people are there not for you. They are, for themselves. And again, that's the land that they've left in Cameroon. That's what it is. It will, when I grew up, because you said when you were growing up, we used to have the sanitation officers come every week or every month to come look at the compound to see if it is clean or not. That was a sense of duty, a sense of community amongst us. We cleaned the streets, we cleaned the compound, we did everything clean. Water was flowing everywhere. So this is nostalgia. These are things that we grew up seeing. Water was flowing everywhere. When I went to school in Kumba, there was water flowing all the time. You go to the tap, you draw the water, you come back, and you're good. But these things are all gone. Where did they go? Where did they go? So those of us looking at this, when we tell the children this is what we grew up experiencing, then they grow up in an arid environment where there is just everything is uncivilness, coupled with the fact that the system is very corrupt. Then they have no reason to believe in that particular system again. It's anomie, it's confusion, because society has degenerated into a structure in a place where only the stratified class of people that exist in that society can benefit from it. And if you don't belong in that particular class, then you're shut out. So what do you expect of the people? They have to rise up, in a peaceful way and tell the government it's enough. Lead us, just like Mo Ibrahim said. You cannot be leading these people into their graves because you're already old. Some of them are senile. They cannot really reason for tomorrow. They reason for yesterday. So why those people should be leading you people again in Cameroon? They should not. I think it behoves them to really look at themselves in the mirror and say, oh no, let my children run this country. I am old. Like when Mandela could have been president for life in South Africa, nobody would have objected. When he did it one time, he said, and I do remember, he said it. He said, this thing is too difficult for me. Let me look for a young person to run South Africa. And that's how Thabo Mbeki came and ran the place. You might have problems there today, but it is when the government changes, keeps changing, at the top, prosperity comes into the country. But if you leave the same person at the top of the government all the time, every time, he changes the constitution to suit the environment, to suit where he is at that moment, then the society would degenerate. It would devolve into chaos. Society would like to live. That's not the land we want to leave behind. We want to leave a land that our children, they can play soccer on the beaches of Limbe or Victoria. They can play their football the way I grew up at the Presbyterian school in Santa, playing football all the time with my friends. Every evening you come and do it. We play till dusk. You rush and you take water and go back to the house, and your mom is happy with you. But the children cannot always do it because the last time I was there, by 6.
Okay, Barrister, we are going to take some interviews now, and we will be back in some few minutes, and I'm going to read out some extracts of the book to you so that you can add more flesh to the bone. Stay with us.
For that child to be killed is a gross violation, and it also reflects the nature of impunity and accountability that we have in this country, and it only emboldens those who commit such gross violations. And when you fail to protect the lives of civilian and their property, means you are failing as a state. So that is a child one too many. It's not only about killing, it's the way they drive in the street. It's a kind of disregard and disdain and arrogance the way they speak to the population. There are times when there's an emergency you can understand, but that's what I call military recklessness. There are times when there's no emergency. They have to drive, they have to oppress, they have to suppress the people pointing their guns at innocent civilians. It doesn't help. It builds a culture where people look the military as a force of occupation.
It's just to tell you that the peace we are all talking about is flimsy. It's not real. People still continue to live in tension, in fear of each other, where you have soldiers who cannot protect the military option that we put in place to resolve a political problem is not working. We cannot be living with arms all over. You don't know which training they got to shoot at citizens. Boya, which already was like relatively calm, today is having another phase, and we don't know to where it's going to escalate further.
There is an unfortunate tendency by, I think, a few bad elements in the forces of harassment of the population. Happened, but it is not the kind of life we should live. We must always allow the law to take its course.
We came to the governor today accompanied by the Southwest Regional Delegate for Women's Empowerment and the Family to come and tell the governor that as mothers, as women, we really feel bad. We are in pain following what happened yesterday.
When we look at the reports for this month, we had about 47 incidents which took the lives of 90 persons. 79 of these persons are from the Anglophone region. Amongst the 79, we have 40 of them who are the military, 18 from the separatist group, then we have the civilians, which is about 14. We see that those who are suffering in this case are the civilians and the military. From January up to today, we've recorded already 631 people who've died as a result of this incident. Ngabu, the case is still in court. Government is not really helping the situation because we have people who are very far from the center region, people who don't know Bonjour, and they are forced to come and attend a court session in the Yaoundé. I mean, they are the victims here. Transport is not being given to them. Nothing is taken into consideration. The roads are bad. Not forgetting the case of Kumba, where we lost 7 children. 12 people were arrested with respect to that. 4 people were given a death penalty. 7 others were released, and they paid a bail fee of 50,000. So our question is to ensure that what was really given as verdicts was really directed to the right criminals.
Those were interviews of the week. Now, Barrister, you said in the book that resistance, my brother, is the only rock upon which our collective sacrifices should be peddled on. Can you explain this?
Yes, resist. When I say resist, I resist unjust laws, resist foreign influence, resist people that cling to power for life, resist people that point guns against you, resist people that use all the mechanisms of the law to write laws that do not favor you. That's the resistance there. That's the bedrock on which you have to pedal yourself in order to move into tomorrow. Because if you let people go out to go write contracts for Cameroon, and these people, they don't even know anything about negotiations. Once they go to these foreign capitals and they are being flooded with money, you know, they take it. They write the terms of the contract based on what satisfies the foreign partner and not themselves. And what do you do when they come back with those laws? Imagine if I'm not saying the world should not, it's a global village already, we know that. But in every society, you have to protect the indigents. You have to protect the people themselves. You cannot just go and write laws that favor the foreigners. Again, if you look at the OHADA that I had mentioned one time, in the preamble of that particular law, that regulation that's written, and those laws were written in the French capital or somewhere in Quebec or somewhere, and brought to Cameroon. The average person in the village who wants to go and register a business does not know that the law that he is, you know, following at that moment is the law written by a foreigner in a foreign parliament. They don't know that. And these top officers who go and do this stuff, they do know that. But why would they be doing that to their own people? So that's what I'm saying. You have to resist these people because they are not out for the country. They don't look for tomorrow's future. They are looking for themselves at the expense of you people by yourselves. So you have to resist them in any way, shape, or form. Don't let them. You understand? Because
we no longer have much time. Let me proceed to another extract of what you said in the book, The Land We Leave Behind. You said, truth, I always reminded myself, is achieved at the altar of ideas than in the trenches of invectives.
Yes, that is true. You achieve truth at the altar of ideas than in trenches of invectives. You know, you don't sit there and you're insulting. And this is where I behold, like what the Prime Minister said, that they've moved. We should move. Or the people that they're fighting against them should move also and come somewhere. Yes, that's where you sit at the altar of ideas and not the trenches of invectives. You sit with somebody that you don't like. That's how you find peace. That's how you find justice. That's how you find a solution to a problem. You don't sit with friends and negotiate. No, you sit with the enemy. So that's where the truth comes in. You sit and you look eyeball to eyeball, and I look at you and you look at me, and we say, well, Mr. X, Mr. Y, this is where the problem is. This is and this is the solution. We begin from that point and we devolve outside. You don't stand from, that's where you go. Sit and look at the key, the central point of what the issue is, and you radiate from that central point and you go outwards. If you start from outside and you're coming in, by the time you come in, they've already seen the falsity of everything that you're trying to do, and you will never achieve it. So standing from outside and doing it, it's the wrong path. It's just like a politician once said, I'd rather sit in the tent, you know, and, you know, the language and pee outside than sit outside and try to pee in the tent. So you sit right there in the middle with the people that matter, with the ideas. You discuss the ideas and you come out. And if you're going to write laws and contracts for the country, you look for people who can really sit down and read these laws and understand them and help you people to move the society. You don't just go bring foreign corporations like.
Still in the book, Barrister, The Land We Leave Behind, somewhere you said, people achieve vindication when they die seeking truth rather than seeking the truth.
Again, that's what I had said. You know, long revered is the maxim that, you know, in the true sense of justice, we find peace, we find security. That is true. You know, if you seeking the truth, then you cannot find justice. If you make the truth look as an aberration, if you make the truth look at something that's far-fetched, then you will be sickening the society by itself. So you it's just like you go to church and you pray and you meditate, and not even in church or your mosque or wherever you go, and you meditate to get to the core, the truth of the matter. If you get it at that point, then you realize that you will be self-satisfied. You can come out and you talk to your brother or you talk to your sister or your brethren in a much more polite or in a much more clean way, because you're looking for the truth. If you seek that, but if you peddle lies, again, as I said, you know, if you peddle lies on the altar of truth, then you come out with, there will be no vindication of what you were trying to do. You would come out with anger because, you know, of course, you know that one lie that you say might travel thousands of miles, but the truth will still stick out there. But again, in the end, it is the truth that really matters, not splitting.
Of this edition of The Inside, very quickly with this last one, you said the gravamen of truth precedes the constant assault on weaker civilizations and the creative essence of superior techniques to maintain that in perpetuity.
Yes, that is true. The creative power of civilizations should not be, because the way I looked at that book, the way I was writing that book, was looking at our civilization, how it has been crumbled from the slavery to colonization, to neo-colonization, to what we are going on today. Because what's happening in Cameroon, it is not something that our parents grew up really understanding. You know, weaker civilizations should not oppress on the younger, much more on the less, as the way they call it. Because I did mention there with Antoine de Saint-Exupéry in his book, he wrote that if civilizations do coalesce in search of newer ideologies, then it's monstrous that they devour each other.
Barrister Akufor Innocent, Aneneba, Cameroon-born attorney and counselor law in New York, human rights defender, major proponent of decolonization, author of the book, The Land We Leave Behind. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Babila. And Equinoxe is, it's a channel I love coming on. And again, you guys are doing a marvelous job, and just keep informing the people so that they should be, smart the way they, they encounter social change in society.
That's it for today.